go live button. So let's give it a quick minute for the stream to fire up across the internet. If you're not familiar, we do multi-stream, which means we broadcast across a number of different platforms, places like Facebook and Periscope and Twitch and YouTube. And it looks like we're online across the board. So let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We have judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice. And as we know, it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and I to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. And that's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency back down upon our very system with the hope of encouraging some meaningful change. And that's why we're so grateful that you are here and with us today, because we've got a lot to get into. If you haven't been following the news of the day, of the week, really, we're all talking about GameStop. We're talking about stocks. We're talking about investors having a meltdown because some people on Reddit figured out how to game the system a little bit using their own rules against them. And now we're seeing just this catastrophe, apparently, over for the sort of Wall Street class that we see out and about us in society. They're trying to halt trading on Robinhood and American Trade or whatever these different stock platforms are. So we want to break down what that looks like, because now the SEC is they're keeping an eye on this stuff. And as we know, as we talked about yesterday, there's a new sheriff in town. The Department of Justice is now prosecuting people for their conduct online. We saw that yesterday a guy named Douglas Mackey was charged with some bizarre sort of conspiratorial charge that we saw under the U.S. Code for posting memes online. So now if you're posting stuff on Reddit, are you in potentially hot water? Well, we're going to take a look and potentially forecast what that might look like. We're also going to take a look at what's going on in New York. There was a new report that was released from the Attorney General in New York. Her name is Letitia James. We've talked about her previously in the context of, I think it was Jacob Blake, that shooting that occurred in New York. And her Attorney General office did this deep dive investigation into how Governor Andrew Cuomo was handling the COVID response. And so, these are two Democrats. They're both in New York. And Letitia James, the Attorney General, is now saying that Andrew Cuomo was underreporting the deaths in nursing homes by about 50%, just underreporting them. And this was a big scandal, because back during the early days of COVID, Andrew Cuomo was sending a lot of sort of infected people back into the nursing homes, and he got a lot of grief over that. So we want to take a look at what that report shows. We're also going to be updating you on some Capitol Hill stuff. So a Capitol Hill police officer died. We also have a new report from the Department of Homeland Security that is calling out extremism and is asking people to report on other online activities. So this online misinformation stuff is really heating up. Near the end of the program, we'll give you an update on what's going on in Texas. You may have seen this a couple days ago. We haven't gotten to it yet because there's just been so much other stuff going on. But I want to talk about what's going on with Attorney General Ken Paxton out in Texas, because what happened here is, as soon as Biden took office, he issued a number of executive orders, I think the most ever, just a massive amount of them. And one of them was about putting a moratorium on the deportation activities that were already underway. And Texas filed a lawsuit, and a federal judge came out and sided with Texas. So we have a copy of that order. And we don't know if this is a taste of things to come. This happened when Donald Trump took office. There was a lot of activity there. He was signing executive orders, and everything that he was trying to do, the courts just kind of put the kibosh on it. They said, nope, not going to allow that to happen, because other stuff was already underway. And so the same thing is happening here. Joe Biden is trying to get some stuff done, and the courts are saying, not so fast. You can't just come in here and derail things that were already in motion. So a lot to get to, and we're going to spend some time on it. I want to invite you, if you have not already done so, to subscribe to our show. We go live at this time every day of the week. We would love to have you here and in the future. So a subscribe, a like, a thumbs up, a comment, an invitation to somebody else would be very much appreciated as we try to grow this broadcast. And the other thing, if you're not familiar, is we go through a series of slides. Miss Faith is back there in the office right behind me. She's fielding questions as they come in. So if you have any super chats or any messages, you can send those in. We'll address those after we get through some of the primary source documents. We're going to look at some lawsuits and some official government documents, and then we'll get into the live chat at the end of the program. If you would like a copy of the slides, if you would like a copy of my book, there's a free PDF. If you want a copy of our impeachment party templates, because we've got an impeachment trial coming up very soon, 10 days. If you want any of that stuff, get it over on Locals. The website is watchingthewatchers.locals with an S.com. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Head on over there. You can get all that stuff for free. We'd love it if you joined up. We're trying to grow that platform a little bit, because the more members we get, the more privileges we get on the platform. It unlocks certain features. And so we'd appreciate your support over there as well. All right, so enough of that. Let's get right into business. I want to start by talking about GameStop. GameStop, now a little warning here. I am a lawyer. I am not a stock trader, stock analyst. And so some of this stuff is a little bit over my head when it comes to, how short sales and contracts to buy stock and selling stock and all that stuff. This is not why I'm interested in this story. I am interested because I think that there may be some criminal culpability that results from all of this. And I'm not passing judgment one way or the other about what these Redditors did or what's going on. Anything that really sticks it to the oligarchy that is in control of most of the mechanisms of power in Washington is pretty much okay by me. So if a bunch of billionaires and hedge funds are upset about this, then I'm not inclined to give them much sympathy or empathy about any of that. And if the Redditors are playing by the rules, fair game. But remember, the rules are sort of changing here and there a little bit. Previously to yesterday, we thought that you could post a meme on the internet and you'd be fine. But yesterday we learned that's not the case anymore. Different set of rules. Now you can get charged with a crime and literally prosecuted for that, facing a potential 10-year sentence for posting memes on the internet. The Department of Justice is going after people now, and these Redditors might be in their crosshairs. The SEC is now saying that they're going to get involved, and so I want to just touch base on this, plant a stake in the ground, so that we know what's going on in case something like this happens. In case we fast forward 6 months, the SEC does an investigation after all the dust has settled and says, yeah, we're going to charge all these people over in the subreddit called Wall Street Bets. We're just going to charge them all because we're going to say this was collusion. They're going to find some other obscure statute that they want to dive into, and it could be troubling, right? There could be a lot of people who are sort of wrapped up into this thing, depending on what the FBI, the U.S. attorneys, and the Department of Justice want to do. So let's keep an eye on it. Let's take a look at what happened on the stock market today as it relates to GameStop. See here, a lot of red numbers. So it's down 153 points, about 44% on during the day when it closed at 4 p.m. Eastern. And then in after hours trading, it looks like it's bouncing back up. So a lot of volatility here. And really, if you want to sort of do a quick and dirty on this, the way that it worked is, there were some hedge funds that were betting that the stocks would go down. They would buy, they call this a short squeeze, where they would buy some stocks or buy a contract on stocks predicting that the stocks would go down. They didn't go down because these Redditors puffed it all up. So they lost a bunch of money. These Redditors made a bunch of money. And so now everybody's jumping in. If you got in at the low level and these stocks are going way up, then they're making a lot of money. And these hedge funds, which were betting on the stocks going down, are losing a ton of money. And so what happened recently is, I think today, Robinhood and Ameritrade and some of these other platforms just got the order. You're not allowed to sell this stock anymore. You're not allowed to trade this stock on the platform because they're closely connected with some major hedge funds. Things like Citron Capital and some of these bigger organizations are sort of putting the kibosh on this stuff. They're saying, nope, no more trading, because they have figured out a model that is sort of using and utilizing the same techniques that these hedge funds use. They figured it out, and they're crowdsourcing some resources to go in and make these major purchases and sort of move the markets around. Same thing that I think most people know or expect is happening on Wall Street. They're just doing it sort of from a retail investing standpoint. So it's just sort of an amalgamation, a group of other individuals deciding they're going to get together and do this and stick it to the big Wall Street individuals. So this story came over from the Wall Street Journal. It says GameStop surge tests the scope of the SEC's manipulation rules. And this is what is a little bit concerning to me. When you start talking about insider trading or collusion as it relates to stocks, there's a lot of rules there. It's like a minefield. And that's why you have all these investors. I work with a financial company. They handle most of this stuff for me because it's so much information to digest. And when you start to see a lot of, people who are sort of outside of that safety bubble outside of that, the inner circle, the club, the secret club, and they are starting to use the same rules. Well, the people who are running the club, they don't like that too much. They don't like the fact that they're getting taken advantage of, that they're losing billions, while some other, of the lowly little peasant class are taking some of their gains away from them. They consider that to be ill-gotten. And so as we typically see in these types of situations, the government responds to protect the government interests. The big lobbyists come in and they just sort of set up these schemes that allow them to escape liability while the other people get screwed. And so I've been concerned watching all of this happen, that maybe further down the line there will be some sort of criminal charges for these individuals. I'm hopeful that there isn't, but there could be. And now we're seeing that Biden and the SEC are getting involved. So this article says the bullish traders have rallied together to buy shares of the GameStop Corporation in recent weeks, driving up the price more than tenfold and prompting complaints that the frenetic activity is manipulative. So they're starting to say, right out of the gate, that this is manipulative. When you hear that type of language, it means that somebody's going to want some repercussions for this. The frenzy has played out on public websites such as Reddit's Wall Street Bets, where small investors brag about their gains and exhort others to buy more shares and more options. That transparency could make it easier for regulators to levy claims of manipulation, which historically have been a difficult offense for regulators to prove. So, all of this stuff is being done right out in the open. So presumably, they can get subpoenas, they can go find out or attempt to find out who these individuals are, identify their true identity, and then pursue criminal charges against them. Here's a quote here. It says, quote, "If they are all egging each other on using social media platform, they are effectively engaged in a crowdsourced pump and dump scheme," said Daniel Hawk, a partner at Arnold Porter K. Scholar LLP. "The traders are, quote, making no effort to conceal their apparent intent to manipulate the price of the stock," added Mr. Hawk, a former chief of Securities and Exchange Commission's Market Abuse Unit. Okay, Market Abuse Unit. So there's going to be a whole series of regulations that, probably prosecutors are looking at right now to see if they can charge these individuals with crimes. The Biden administration is monitoring the situation with the GameStop stock. The White House says, and this was posted yesterday afternoon, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Wednesday and said that the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and others in the Biden administration are keeping an eye on huge moves being made by GameStop and some other stocks. I think some other stocks include AMC and some of the other sort of like blockbuster and 90s stocks. Quote from Psaki says, "Our economic team, including the Secretary Yellen and others, are monitoring the situation. It's a good reminder, though, that the stock market isn't the only measure of health of our economy." And the SEC themselves came out and they put out a public statement yesterday. The acting chair, Allison Heron-Lee, Pete Driscoll, the director of Division of Examinations, and Christian Sabella, the acting director, Division of Trading and Markets, they're all taking a look at it. Very, very brief statement, not a lot of information, but they are saying here, "We are aware of and actively monitoring the ongoing market volatility in the options and equities markets, and consistent with our mission to protect investors and maintain fair, orderly, and efficient markets, we are working with our fellow regulators to assess the situation and review the activities of regulated entities, financial intermediaries, and other market participants." Okay, and that's where you get a little bit concerned. Other market participants. Who are those? Well, those are, of course, the Redditors. Those are the individual, private, retail investors who are making decisions with their money. They're communicating about this stuff in an open forum on a public website, and so this just gives them, typically when you think about manipulation, you would take 10 people with $10 million in assets. You'd all go buy a bunch of stock or whatever that is. Whatever you need to do to accomplish your goals. But it's sort of secret, right? You've got this kind of internal cabal of individuals who are wanting to exercise their assets to go and buy stock, sell stock, buy short sale contracts or whatever it is. And here now it's all public. It's all right in the open. So does that give them more exposure? Does the SEC, do they care about this stuff? Are they going to be considering this criminal? We just don't know yet. And there was an interesting thing that happened today on Twitter because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, somebody with whom I very rarely agree, was out making a claim here, saying that what's happening with the House Financial Services Committee and the fact that they're sort of limiting the ability to buy and trade in this stock is unacceptable. She posted some things on Twitter today, and this story came over from BusinessInsider.com. Unacceptable. AOC calls out Robinhood for blocking the GameStop purchase and suggests holding a hearing on it. So what was happening is, Robinhood is this app that everybody downloads on your phone. I don't use it, but it makes trading stocks and engaging in the stock market a lot more accessible to the average person. Rather than going through a stockbroker or financial firm, you just download an app. You log in. I think they have some options where you can, just have like a set amount of money go into a portfolio, and then you can invest sort of automatically. And so what people were doing is they were getting on Robinhood and they were going, wait a minute, they are doing a pump and dump on the stock for GameStop, and I want to get in on that. There's a big wave coming, and I want to hop on and invest some money, and then I'll get out when it peaks. And so what Robinhood did is they said, no, you can't do that anymore. They literally shut the app off. And I have not confirmed this yet. I don't know if this is actually true or not, but this afternoon I was seeing that some people were saying that Robinhood was actually selling their position in that stock without notifying the consumer. In other words, if you were using the app, you would just log on and you would say, well, I thought I had 10 shares of GameStop. And then suddenly you get an email from Robinhood and they say, we sold that for you, by the way, because we were worried about your situation. And, so essentially what they're trying to do is make it so that the people who were buying the short sale stock, who were betting against the stock, that they're made whole again at the expense of the retail investors, at the expense of sort of, layperson investors, Reddit trolls, or other people who were just out there just saying, this is kind of hilarious, right? They're doing it for the lulls. And, they don't like that when you're talking about billions of dollars, which I think was where this was going in terms of those short sale investments. So AOC comes out. She's not happy about it. She says, this is unacceptable. She's referring to Motherboard. And Motherboard was posting, more than half of Robinhood users own at least some GameStop stock. It's like a tongue twister there. They are now unable to freely trade it. The app is only allowing users to close out their positions, but not buy it. So they're literally, it's limiting their ability to do things with their assets it's directly against their interest. If they want to buy stock, they can't do it anymore. This is unacceptable, AOC says. We now need to know more about Robinhood app's decision to block retail investors from purchasing stock while hedge funds are freely able to trade the stock as they see fit. As a member of the Financial Services Committee, I'd support a hearing if necessary. Over on Business Insider, Rep. AOC of New York called the stock trading unacceptable, said they want to investigate it. Robinhood, Ameritrade, and Fidelity have halted users from purchasing shares of certain companies that Reddit users have been buying up en masse. Over the course of the month in January, investors and members of the popular Reddit forum Wall Street Bets has more than 2 million users have pushed shares higher for retailers. GameStop, AMC, Nokia, BlackBerry, all of the stocks are being heavily shorted or bet against by major hedge funds prior to this activity. Inquiries into the freezes should not be limited solely to Robinhood, said AOC. It's a serious matter. Committee investigators should examine any retail services freezing stock purchases in the course of potential investigations, especially those allowing sales but freezing purchases. The moves by major trading platforms to block purchases has drawn sharp criticism from figures from around the world, including Barstool Sports, Donald Trump Jr., Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who tweeted that he fully agreed with Ocasio. And we're going to talk about that. Two of Ocasio's progressive Democratic colleagues, Rashida Tlaib, and we've got Ro Khanna out of California. They represent Silicon Valley. They got behind her. They said, we need an investigation into the Robinhood app's decision and who influenced that. This shows the need for financial transaction tax. So never let a crisis go to waste. They want a financial transaction tax on hedge fund and SEC regulations on short selling practices. On Wednesday, Ocasio and Elizabeth Warren, a leading expert on consumer protection law, who has long advocated for stricter restrictions on Wall Street, are now jumping on board as well. Warren similarly stated for years the same hedge funds, private equity firms, and wealthy investors dismayed by the GameStop trades have treated the stock market like their own personal casino while everyone else pays the price. Wake up and do their jobs, she's demanding of the regulators. So both sides are sort of up in arms about this stuff. I think I saw Ben Shapiro come back out and say, no, the stock market is all good and fine, and there's nothing we need to worry about there. Or he had a long post, and then he was getting skewered by some people. And, it's a complicated issue, and not a lot of people understand the intricacies of the stock market. It's sort of, out there a little bit, unless this is where you live. It's sort of trying to communicate about something that is, it's kind of a foreign world to a certain extent. But The point here is that people who've got assets and who've got money and who want to engage in a service called Robinhood or Ameritrade, they're not being allowed to do that. And it seems like a lot of the limitations are being put in place to protect the bigger money, to protect the bigger clients. In other words, you've got these massive hedge funds who are out there making these bets. They all know how it's going to go. They all know how to manipulate the markets to their, to a certain degree, and they don't like what's happening. And so these smaller, these tech companies that are really beholden to the big money on Wall Street are now squeezing out the little guys in favor of the big guys. So you can't buy any more stock. You can't keep pumping it up. You just can only sell it. And if you don't sell it, they'll sell it for you. So it definitely feels like a little bit of a class warfare thing, which is why, of course, you have Elizabeth Warren and others jumping in to slam on Wall Street, which I don't have any particular problem with that at all. So AOC is out there. She says, hey, we got to do something about this. And for the first time since the January 20th, I was feeling a little bit of unity myself. I happen to disagree with AOC on a lot of things. I think she's a pretty effective politician. She's got a massive audience, and she is going to be a formidable foe for Republicans, I think, in the future, just because of her ability to generate attention, sort of in the same mold that Donald Trump had. He was just able to suck all the energy out of the room. And AOC has largely been doing that. But today, because she came out against this Robinhood, this GameStop mess that's happening right now, that's unfolding in front of us, Ted Cruz agreed with her. Oh my gosh, you're kidding me. Joe Biden's vision for a unified America is coming true. Let's take a look at Twitter. We have Ted Cruz, who is retweeting AOC. She says this is unacceptable. And Ted Cruz chimes in. He says, look, fully agree. And I'm thinking, red and blue coming together. The country is healing. Finally, adults in the room. Finally, isn't this refreshing? Don't you feel refreshed now? We finally have adults in the room. Country's getting back on the world stage. Everything is just moving the right direction. I sense responsibility. I sense an improved stature in the world. Ted Cruz and AOC are agreeing with one another. Oh my goodness. I feel so warm and fluffy inside, don't you? Well, that lasted for about 10 minutes. Here is AOC bouncing back. She says over here, responding to Ted Cruz, he said, I fully agree. So she responds and says, I am happy to work with Republicans on this issue where there's a common ground, but you almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago. So you can sit this one out. Happy to work with almost any other GOP that aren't trying to get me killed. In the meantime, if you want to help, you can resign. Woo! Woo! That was aggressive. Dang, one more time. I am happy to work with Republicans on this issue where there's common ground, but you almost had me murdered 3 weeks ago. So you can sit this one out, buddy boy. Happy to work with almost any other GOP that aren't trying to get me killed. If you want to help, you can resign. She just keeps slam dunking, just, cramming it in there. She says, while you conveniently talk about, quote, moving on, a second Capitol police officer lost their life yesterday in the still raging aftermath of the attacks you had a role in. This isn't a joke. We need accountability. And that includes a new senator from Texas, AOC says. You haven't even apologized for the serious physical plus mental harm you contributed to the Capitol Police and custodial workers, to your own fellow members of Congress. In the meantime, you can get off my timeline and stop clout chasing. Thanks. Happy to work with other GOP on this. So for a moment, I thought that there was going to be unification, but then we have AOC coming out there and just dumping on Twitter like an entitled, whiny millennial, making us all look bad for that. So she says that she was almost murdered. Okay, that's one way to categorize it. Said that literally Ted Cruz was trying to get her killed. That's interesting, because he was in the Capitol building giving a speech as the breach was being conducted. So I'm not sure what he was doing. I mean, maybe when they broke through the outer perimeter on Capitol Hill, maybe Ted Cruz was chasing AOC over in the House chamber. I have no idea. I don't know how he tried to get her killed, but apparently he did, according to AOC. And so she wants him to resign. She wants an apology. She wants him to go to Congress and beg forgiveness, and on and on and on. Apparently, this Capitol Hill attack is still raging on, still raging aftermath, according to AOC. So that was that for unity. That's kind of gone and out the window. It lasted, I felt good for about 30 seconds, and then AOC ruined it. But all right, that's what it is. All right, so that's going on. Now, speaking of the Capitol Hill protests, let's take a look at what else is happening there. This is a statement from the acting chief Pittman. We've talked about her a couple times this week, and we have a new story from her where they're saying that we may actually see some permanent security features as a result of the Capitol Hill protest, meaning they're going to just put up fences and permanent infrastructure to protect the Capitol from what happened on January 6th. So 7,000 more troops, National Guard, were left there over the week leading up to Donald Trump's impeachment trial. And now they're talking about permanent physical security around the Capitol building. This is over from Yogananda Chief Pittman regarding the Capitol complex physical security. This was posted today in a press release. Says, in the days following January 6th, with the assistance of our federal and local law enforcement partners and our congressional stakeholders, the U.S. Capitol Police has hardened the physical security across the Capitol complex in order to further protect the Congress. Upon becoming acting police chief on January 8th, after Stephen Sund resigned, I immediately directed my staff to conduct a physical security assessment of the entire complex. This assessment was in addition to the U.S. Capitol Police Inspector General review of the events and a third-party review of the complex's physical infrastructure, processes, and command and control being conducted at the behest of Speaker Pelosi. So we got some good names in here that we can follow along. Lieutenant General Russell Honore, and we've got there was the other individual. Where was that? Well, I don't know where it is. I welcome each of these reviews. I'm assuring that the department will provide all of the information that is necessary to facilitate these studies. In the end, we have the same goal. As I noted earlier, even before September 11th, security experts argued we needed more to be done to protect the Capitol. There was a 2006 security assessment that recommended the installation of permanent perimeter fence around the Capitol. In light of these events, I unequivocally say that the vast improvements to the physical security infrastructure must be made to include permanent fencing and the availability of ready backup forces in close proximity to the Capitol. I look forward to working with Congress to identify what needs to be done. So, permanent fences now around the Capitol building, which is a major bummer. I mean, it's just a tragedy. If you've ever been to Washington, D.C., one of the coolest things about it is that you can kind of just walk up to the Capitol. You can just kind of walk up there. It's kind of crazy. I mean, there's perimeters and stuff like that, but you can't go into the building, but you can get real close to it. And it kind of feels like you can just walk into it. And it's kind of like that for a lot of different things. You can just like walk right into the Lincoln Memorial. Can't get very close to the White House, but a lot of the other buildings, the FBI building and the Smithsonian, and there's all sorts of just awesome stuff all in this general mall. And it's pretty neat, but now, because of those damn Trumpists and those damn extremists, they are going to have to install permanent security for the foreseeable future. Which is just, I mean, it's just wild, because if they would have just accepted more help, if Mayor Bowser would have accepted more help, if the Sergeant of Arms for the House and the Senate would have not declined the Chief of Police for the Capitol Hill Police, if he was recommending we get more people because they knew there was going to be a big turnout on January 6th, but they all blew it. Basically, every different level of government that should have been prepared for that was not prepared for it. And so now they're going to try to fix it after the fact. So, all right, so that's what's going on in Capitol Hill. Let's change gears. Let's talk about Cuomo and Letitia James, because there is this new report that came out in New York stating that Andrew Cuomo and his Department of Health, the people who were monitoring COVID when it was all breaking out last year, were responsible for underreporting the total number of nursing home deaths. And really the way that this worked is, you would call a nursing home death if somebody was living in a nursing home in a nursing home. They died from COVID. Then if they were in the nursing home, you would count that as a nursing home COVID death. But the quick and dirty version of this is what was happening is they would send these people out of the nursing home when they got sick. They would go to the hospital and die at the hospital, and then that was a non-nursing home death. So that didn't get counted in the numbers. So if you do not recall, there was a big issue here because Andrew Cuomo had some policy when COVID was first breaking out that said, if you're sick, you go back to the nursing home. We're basically going to use these nursing homes as sort of makeshift hospitals to a certain degree. And this was a catastrophic mistake. Everybody, I think, recognizes that because we didn't know much at the time, and hindsight is 2020. But one of the things that everybody is definitely recognizing now is this disease hits people who are old the hardest. So adding to the capacity of a nursing home, keeping people enclosed in a nursing home, sending sick patients back there, allowing COVID to fester in a high population that has a lot of vulnerable older adults is probably the worst decision you could ever make. And they did that. And as a result of what happened there and all those deaths, now they're having to cover this up. Now they're having to sweep this thing aside and manipulate the numbers. We've talked a lot about COVID number manipulation here. Well, not a lot about it, but here and there we've talked about it. And so that's what Attorney General Letitia James is trying to investigate. She goes over to Cuomo's Department of Health and says, hey, you said all these people died. Is that accurate? And when they break down the numbers, they find, no, they're being underreported by like 50%. Big number. Okay. They already had a lot of deaths over there that were a direct result of the nursing home proximity. If you add another 50% to that, very, very big. So this story came over from the New York Post. COVID deaths in New York nursing homes were 50% higher than claimed, according to a probe. Governor Andrew Cuomo's administration hasn't revealed how many of those residents died in hospitals, said State Attorney General Letitia James. In a damning 76-page report, James also identified nursing homes apparently underreported resident fatalities to the state, with more than 20 currently under investigation. The bombshells could push the DOH, so the Department of Health, tally of 8,700 deaths to more than 13,000 based on a survey of 62 nursing homes that found the state undercounted the fatalities there by an average of 56%. The report further notes that at least 4,000 residents died after the state issued a controversial March 25th Cuomo administration mandate for nursing homes to admit, quote, medically stable coronavirus patients, which James said, quote, may have put the residents at increased risk of harm in some facilities. So Vivian Zayas, who founded the Voices for Seniors advocacy group, who lived in a Long Island nursing home, died of COVID-19 last year, said that, quote, our jaws dropped upon reading the report. Oh, her mom died last year, so Vivian didn't die. The Attorney General's report shows that Cuomo's book on his great leadership during the pandemic is a fraud, she said, which is just hilarious. I hadn't read this, but I made the same point over on Locals. It's a fraud and an insult to the families. He's a fraud, and his book is a fraud. So that has something that's been going on for some time, right? Andrew Cuomo was out there. The media was just drooling over him. Gosh, what an excellent leader. Look at him. Donald Trump doesn't know how to handle a pandemic, but Andrew Cuomo does, because he's out there, he's addressing this thing, he's frontline, he's taking the hard questions, while Donald Trump just is not taking this very seriously. And then Andrew Cuomo had that stupid poster made where he looked like a saint floating around the heavens. And then there was this other, I think that might have been Mayor de Blasio. I don't know. One of the New York knuckleheads over there had that going on. And then Andrew Cuomo released a book, Crisis in Leadership or something like that on Amazon. It's got like 1,200 5-star reviews. And I was wondering, did he talk about manipulating governmental reporting numbers in that book? Is there a chapter on that? I haven't read it yet, but presumably that's what he did, because he reduced his total deaths by about 50%, according to Letitia James. Was that in there? How to establish good key performance indicators, KPIs, some solid metrics that you can measure. And then when you get the numbers that you don't like, you just manipulate them. You just say, okay, well, how can we kind of shrink that number up a little bit? Because that's exactly what happened. Cuomo has repeatedly attacked the Post for its hard-hitting reports on the nursing home crisis, suggesting that the coverage was politically motivated to kill all Democrats. All right, so. And during the spectacularly ill-timed appearances on Tuesday, Cuomo tried to blame the COVID deaths on former President Donald Trump, offering one quote that seemed to now apply equally to his own administration in light of the James report. Cuomo said, incompetent government kills people. More people died than needed to die in COVID. That's the truth. And yeah, he's proven that for everybody. James' report does not increase the number of overall deaths in the Empire State from the coronavirus, which stands at an estimated 42,000. So it's just saying that it's moving the numbers around. So the total number is accurate, but the question is, how is this divided up? Apparently a bigger number of that, a bigger piece of this pie, was due to the nursing home debacle. The state DOH puts the number at 34,579, but that only includes confirmed deaths. James' report shows that nursing homes were even deadlier than previously thought, potentially accounting for nearly 1 in every 3 fatalities in the state as a result of coronavirus. The report also revealed that many nursing homes mishandled 6 patients with the disease by failing to properly isolate the patients who tested positive. In addition, it says nursing home managers often failed to screen and test employees for the virus, and demanding that sick staff continue to care or face punishment or termination. So that's coming out of New York. Here is the report from Letitia James. So as I like to do, we're going to look at the document itself and make sure that it all matches up. And it does. I skimmed through it earlier today. It was from the New York State Office of the Attorney General, Letitia James. And once again, she's a Democrat, because it's not a Republican thing against the Democrat thing. This is internal political business in New York. Nursing home response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This report is based on the preliminary findings of the Office of the Attorney General, Letitia James, OAG. Report includes facts from her preliminary findings. They set up a hotline to receive complaints. They received 774 complaints, an additional 179 through November 16th. During this time, they received complaints regarding nursing homes across the state, with a greater volume of complaints regarding the geographic areas with higher community-based transmission of COVID-19. So they've been investigating for more than 20 nursing homes. Other law enforcement agencies also have investigations going on. The Department of Health data reports that 6,645 resident deaths, with the vast majority of those were occurring as of August 3rd. So it's kind of a pretty bland and boring report. If we look at some of the key findings, a larger number of nursing home residents died from COVID-19 than the DOH data reflected. And these are preliminary findings, so they're subject to change. Lack of compliance with infection control protocols put residents at increased risk of harm. Nursing homes that entered the pandemic with low U.S. centers for Medicare and Medicaid had higher fatality rates. Insufficient personal protective equipment was available. Insufficient testing for residents. So a lot of the same problems that we normally see. The current state reimbursement model for nursing homes gave a financial incentive to owners and for-profit nursing homes to transfer funds to related parties, also ultimately increasing their own profit instead of investing in higher levels of staffing and PPE. So these old people were just being carted around like cattle. Lack of nursing home compliance with the executive order requiring communication with family caused avoidable pain and distress. They couldn't talk. Remember that? When you couldn't even communicate with people, you couldn't go to the hospital. I don't know if you can still go to the hospital for some of these situations. Government guidance requiring the admission of COVID-19 patients into nursing homes may have put residents of increased risk of harm in some facilities and may have obscured the data available to assess the risk. A larger number of nursing home residents died from COVID-19 than the data reflected. And this is where they break that report down. So you'll see here, it says the facility deaths reported to the Office of the Attorney General were 1,200. Facility deaths that were publicized by DOH, roughly the same number. Total deaths reported to the OAG, including residents, versus the publicized data, there was another 500 in there. Facility deaths reported to the Office of the Office of the Attorney General, 1,900. Published by DOH, 1,200, a difference of 685 people. So that is 55% of a decrease. And then if you read this full report, you'll just see they were just analyzing. Essentially, they were just counting where people were when they died. So rather than taking everybody who lived in a nursing home and died and counting that number, they were taking that bucket and separating it apart. And they were saying, okay, these were the people who actually died in the nursing home. Anybody who was transported via an ambulance or by medical professionals outside of the nursing home to a hospital and they died at the hospital, that didn't count because they didn't die in a nursing home. Even though they lived in a nursing home, they got sick in a nursing home. It was a direct response. It was likely causally connected to the order from Cuomo to sort of send everybody back to the nursing homes. But because they physically died in a different location, they manipulated those numbers. So, it's pretty standard stuff. You want to manipulate the numbers any way you can, so you can write a book about it and appear on CNN, as Andrew Cuomo did. The examples below illustrate that the discrepancies remain even when the data that was reported to the Attorney General is compared to data. A facility reported 11 confirmed COVID deaths at the facility, 1 suspected COVID-19 death at the facility, and 4 hospital deaths, and reported the same data to OAG. However, the DOH only published 1 confirmed COVID death at the facility, when its publication reflected 11 confirmed in-facility deaths, a discrepancy of 5 deaths from what was reported to the DOH facility. And this stuff is intentional, in my opinion, folks. This is highly intentional. You have some numbers people sitting around the room and deciding how to divide this pie of deaths. A facility reported 1 confirmed and 6 presumed COVID deaths at the facility. However, a facility reported to OAG 31 suspected deaths, a discrepancy of 25 deaths. A facility reported another 5 confirmed, 6 presumed COVID deaths at the facility, but the OAG 27 were reported, a discrepancy of 29 deaths. Applying the data to these 62 nursing homes shows a significantly higher number of resident COVID-19 deaths can be identified than is reflected by the DOH. And this is where the final conclusion was down here at the bottom. In conclusion, this preliminary data for the 62 facilities and time periods noted above suggests that COVID-19 resident deaths associated with nursing homes in New York State appear to be undercounted by the Department of Health by approximately 50%. All right. So, I've been making this point for months now on this channel that you can't trust almost anybody. The experts in this country have been largely misleading, I think, most of the country for a very long time now. And COVID is making it very apparent. COVID has had so many problems. Okay, we had Dr. Fauci saying, don't wear masks. They don't help. They don't do anything. Then suddenly, you got to wear masks. Now it's wear 2 masks, 3 masks. Wrap your head in cellophane, and you'll be good to go. There's always misinformation out there, whether it's actual deaths or reported deaths or anything, as we can see here, right? This is in one city, in one state, in one government, and they're talking about a 50% reporting error. Why is that? Well, I'll let you decide. All right, let's change gears. Very sad story today. There was a second police officer who died by suicide following the Capitol attack, and this is an interesting story. And it's one I want to make sure that we're not, poking light at. For those of you who do not know, I had a suicide loss in my life, something that was very important and very impactful to me. And so this is something I just wanted to make note of, that, we want to be very compassionate when we're talking about these stories. And I don't really like to make these things political. So I just wanted to make a notation here that this is something that happened. And people are already jumping on it from both sides of the aisle. Second police officer died by suicide following a Capitol attack. This was posted over on Politico. A second police officer who responded to the violent insurrection that rocked the Capitol building has died by suicide, according to testimony obtained by Politico. The acting police chief, Robert Conti, told House appropriators during a closed-door session that Jeffrey Smith, a D.C. police officer, and Capitol police officer Howard Libengood both took their own lives in the aftermath of that battle, which is just horrendous. It's just awful. Smith's deaths had not been disclosed prior to Conti's testimony. A third member of law enforcement, a Capitol police officer, Brian Sicknick, died from the injuries he sustained. We honor the service of all of them. The report of an additional officer's death once again shook Capitol Hill, where many members and staff are still reeling from 3 weeks since the insurrection. 5 people died as a result of the riots. 2 officers later died by suicide, a death toll that has horrified lawmakers of both parties and led them to demand answers from Capitol security officials. So very strange. I'm not sure that there's going to be any information about that. When people die by suicide, you may notice that language there, right? They did not commit suicide. Just if you're not familiar with how that language is being modified to be more politically correct these days. If you say somebody committed suicide, then that is the idea that they did it intentionally. They were in control of it. They had full cognitive capabilities and they killed themselves. And the newer language, the more I would say politically correct language, is they didn't do it themselves. They didn't commit it on themselves. They died by suicide. Something was going on in their minds that caused them to sort of lose touch with their mental faculties in a way that they did something that was so dangerous to themselves or intentional. They were sort of not in their right mind, and that's why they did what they did. And so it's a very, very interesting thing in this country now. Suicide still has a very big stigma around it, and you can have your opinion on that. Some people say that it shouldn't have a stigma. It should be less stigmatized so that it can come out into the open and we can talk about it. While other people still think, it should have a stigma, right? We shouldn't be, kind and compassionate to people who kill themselves because they're killing themselves, and that leaves a lot of wreckage for the rest of society. And so, you can kind of pick where you are on that. But my point here is, we want to be extra compassionate about these topics because another family lost another good person, and multiple families have. This is something that's happening all over the country right now. People are dying in higher and higher numbers as a result of suicide, as a result of overdose, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. The mental weight that is bearing down upon many, many millions of people throughout this country is just so significant that I just wanted to pause and just say, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure that you are not allowing the world to be all consuming to the point where you lose control. And I have a lot of sympathy, a lot of empathy for the families who have lost these 2 officers to suicide. And I will keep them in my prayers. And I hope maybe you'll say one for them as well. So That's all I have to say about that. Talking about the other extremist talk. So as a result, closely connected to this Capitol Hill stuff. Homeland Security is out now saying that there is growing threats of extremism and white supremacist groups that are popping up around the country. The story came over from the New York Times, written by Zolano Cagno-Youngs and David Sanger. Extremists emboldened by the Capitol attack pose a rising threat, Homeland Security says. This warning was a notable departure for a Department of Homeland Security accused of being reluctant during the Trump administration to publish intelligence reports or public warnings posed by the dangers posed by the extremists and the white supremacist groups. And so Washington is reporting the story, warning that the deadly rampage at the Capitol Hill this month may not be an isolated episode, a permanent security theater. The Department of Homeland Security on Wednesday said publicly for the first time that the United States faced a growing threat from violent domestic extremists. And I want to show you, we're going to show you the actual release here from the Department of Homeland Security here. But I've already talked about this, violent domestic extremists. I've seen it phrased, and we'll see it in the document phrased. It's sort of flipped in a flipped version of this. Domestic violent extremists, which is what Jen Psaki said a couple weeks ago, or I think maybe a week ago. The department's terrorism alert did not name specific groups that might be behind any future attacks, but made clear that their motivation would include anger over, quote, the presidential transition, as well as other perceived grievances fueled by false narratives. There it is, folks. A clear reference to the accusations made by President Donald Trump and echoed by right-wing groups that the 2020 election was stolen. So you're going to see that there is that sentence there, grievances fueled by false narratives. And what should you do? Well, we're going to see what the Department of Homeland Security recommends. The article continues. DHS is concerned these same drivers of violence will remain through early 2021. They do not have information about a specific credible plot. According to the statement, they're categorizing this as a warning of developing trends in terrorism rather than a notice of imminent attack. So it's just kind of a general warning, these extremists and white supremacists out there. But an intelligence official involved in the drafting of the Wednesday Bulletin said the decision to issue the report was driven by the department's conclusion that Mr. Biden's peaceful inauguration last week could create a false sense of security because, quote, the intent to engage in violence has not gone away among extremists angered by the outcome of the presidential election. So they're just continuing on with this for the foreseeable future. No real specifics, but milking it for everything that it's worth. Here is the Bulletin from the National Terrorism Advisory System, and it says summary. First of all, this is going to expire on April 30th, so the white supremacists and the Trump supporters will apparently have calmed down by then. But the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, which is now under the Biden administration, has issued a National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin due to the heightened threat environment across the U.S. They believe it'll persist in the weeks following the successful presidential inauguration. And we've already seen some indication about that. They're saying that they're really concerned that this is going to pop up again during the impeachment proceedings or the impeachment trial of Donald Trump. Information suggests that some ideologically motivated violent extremists with objections to the exercise of governmental authority, and that, what they're probably talking about there is just what James Brennan was saying about libertarians. If you object to the exercise of governmental authority, if you object to, let's say, being forced to live in your home, not leave, not go out, not engage in commerce, not, continue to grow your business, or even be allowed to go to your business, or even open your business if you're a gym or a bar or a restaurant, and you're sort of upset about that, you're saying, hey, I have an objection to the exercise of governmental authority. You're within that category. Apparently. We have also the presidential transition, as well as other perceived grievances fueled by, there it is, false narratives. Fueled by false narratives, it could continue to mobilize and incite or commit violence. So, violent extremists that have objections to the exercise of governmental authority and other perceived grievances fueled by false narratives. So there you go. Very dangerous information. As we can see here, you can be charged for memes. You can be charged potentially. The SEC is not particularly happy about you if you're posting about stock tips even. So it's a dangerous, brave new world we're living in. The bulletin continues. Types of advisories we see over here on the right describes the current developments regarding threats of terrorism. Elevated alert warns of credible terrorism threat, and an imminent alert warns of credible, specific, and a specific threat. This is just a bulletin. Okay, so we have three categories. We have a bulletin, an overview. We have an elevated alert, which warns about credible threats, and an imminent alert says we've got credible, specific. So we're just at this first category right now. So we've got a ways to go before we have imminent alerts about any of this stuff. So throughout 2020, domestic violent extremists. So see how they're labeling this now? I've made comment about this before. DVEs is a new label that we have not seen in 4 years. I don't recall seeing it during the Obama years, but this is a new label. And I've talked about this previously. They're sort of taking an old label that we already know about, domestic violence, which is typically involving, just a regular spat with your significant other. It can be a very, very minor altercation, like just an argument, can be something like disorderly conduct / domestic violence. And if you're charged with a domestic violence offense, we already have a framework in place according to our laws that exist throughout this country that you give up certain privileges just automatically, just by being charged with it. You haven't been convicted of anything yet, never gone to trial, never lost. But if you're just charged with domestic violence, one of the release conditions that you'll see around the country is you got to give up your firearms right away. There's already a legal framework for that. And so when I start to see people say, okay, domestic violent extremist, I'm wondering, why is that? That's not a mistake, in my opinion. I think that is intentional. They're going to be trying to, use some of that same framework, the same rationale, the same justification. Okay, our laws already say if you're charged with domestic violence, you got to give up your guns because you're a danger. We don't want you going back home and shooting your wife or something. So, as a matter of just safety and precaution, we're just going to take those away from you pending the outcome of the case. Why are they using that language if not to move forward on that foundation? I don't know. Targeted individuals. So DVEs, the domestic violence extremism, targeted individuals with opposing views engaged in First Amendment protected nonviolent protest activity. DVEs motivated by a range of issues, including anger over COVID-19 restrictions, 2020 electoral results, police use of force, have plotted and on occasion carried out attacks against government facilities. So you've got just general people who are angry over COVID. You've got the Trumpers, apparently, who are upset about the election results. And it looks like they are also upset. They're including a little bit of the Antifa people in here. The police use of force have plotted on occasion carried out attacks about government facilities. So at least we'll give them that, right? They are including both sides of this, and they are talking about multiple government facilities. So they're talking about what happened at Capitol Hill, but presumably they're also talking about the burning of the police precinct down there, the 3rd precinct in Minneapolis, the same one that Kamala Harris was raising bail funds for. So they're including all of that. They got longstanding and racial ethnic tension, including opposition to immigration, has driven the domestic violent extremist attacks, including the 2019 shooting in El Paso that killed 23 people. DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, is concerned these same drivers to violence will remain through early 2021, and some DVEs may be emboldened by the Capitol Hill riots to target elected officials in government facilities. DHS remains concerned, we have another label here, that homegrown violent extremists, so rather than domestic violent extremists, we have homegrown domestic violent extremists. They are a little bit different because rather than being domestic, they're homegrown, and the homegrown people are inspired by foreign terrorist groups who committed 3 attacks targeting government officials in 2020. Threats of violence against critical infrastructure, including electric, telecoms, healthcare, increased in 2020 with extremists citing misinformation. There you go. So misinformation and conspiracy theories about COVID-19. So you see what's happening here. They're laying the framework for this stuff. So at the top of the bulletin, you've got false narratives. Those are very dangerous. You've got perceived grievances. Those are very dangerous. And down here, you've got misinformation and conspiracy theories. So it's all about the data. It's all about the information. Department of Homeland Security, as well as other federal agencies and law enforcement partners, will continue to take precautions. DHS remains committed to preventing violence and threats to intimidate or coerce specific populations on the basis of their religion, race, ethnicity, or political views. And they encourage local, tribal, territorial, homeland security partners to prioritize physical security measures, particularly around government facilities, to protect people and infrastructure. How you can help. So this is the final third, the final bottom. It's a 1-page document. This is the final bulletin here. We ask that the public report suspicious activity and threats of violence, including online activity, to local law enforcement, FBI field offices, or their fusion center. You can make a difference. Share your voice. Avoid large crowds. Be responsible for personal safety. Connect, plan, train. Stay informed. There you go. So that's our new Department of Homeland Security out there. What do you think about that? Okay. Well, let's talk about Texas. We have a federal judge is blocking Biden's 100-day moratorium on deportations. I talked about this a little bit at the start of the show, but if you remember, when Donald Trump got elected, he was coming in off of 2 terms from Obama. And when Donald Trump was signing executive orders, we saw just sort of a really entrenched judiciary, a judicial system that was being very aggressive in making sure that his agenda could not be implemented. And many people on the right were saying, this is ridiculous. Everything is getting stalled. And although we weren't doing the show at that time, one of the things that I was suspecting and that I've commented on in this late transition in this most recent transition, not late, with Joe Biden was, when these projects are already in motion and somebody just comes and with the stroke of a pen eliminates it, like for example, the Keystone XL pipeline. Okay, Trump had that thing moving and humming, and then Biden comes in, cancels it. Literally the day he gets in, or the next day, it's gone. And so everybody who had been working on it, drafting contracts, creating engineering schematics, ordering supplies, ordering materials, hiring people, putting this whole train in motion, it's just done on that day. And you just go, wait a minute, how can that happen? And courts don't like that because you have reliance on the contract. You have now gone out of pocket to go and start performing on the agreement that you made. And so when something happens and it just cuts that off, essentially what the government is doing is taking away something, essentially a right, right? You had a right to get paid on that contract, for example, and the government just takes that away with the stroke of a pen. That really, really hurt Trump. I mean, he was trying to do all of these things, but they said, no, you can't do that. You can't just stop that. I mean, we've been doing it for 8 years now under Obama. Same type of thing is happening here. So, a lot of the Trump people here are going, yeah, Texas, Texas won. This is great. And finally, the courts are going to put a roadblock in Joe Biden's agenda. I'm not so sure that's true. Right now it is just kind of a roadblock. We're going to take a look at the complaint. But what happened here is Joe Biden, as soon as he took office, he issued an executive order that put a limit on deportations for 100 days. So the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency was processing individuals who didn't have lawful status in this country, and Biden just said, stop it immediately. So this article comes over from Fox News. Federal judge blocks Biden's 100-day moratorium on deportations. On Tuesday, temporarily blocked President Biden's attempt to issue that 100-day moratorium. Texas sued over the policy. The judge blocked Biden and issued a temporary restraining order for 14 days. The lawsuit claims the administration would be violating an agreement it has with DHS and would require at least 180 days notice as well as consultation prior to implementing changes in the immigration policy. It's unclear whether those terms are enforceable, but similar agreements were struck with several other states under the former administration. U.S. District Court judge implemented a nationwide injunction because a geographically limited order would not adequately protect Texas's interest due to the free flow of movement of illegal aliens from other states. Fox News exclusively reported over the weekend that an email sent last week to ICE officers called for stopping all removals and, quote, to release them all immediately. So stop all removals and release them all immediately. So that would be, all, or them would be undocumented immigrants. Biden has pledged to move forward with a moratorium on deportations as his administration resets its approach towards immigration policy. Non-citizens who have engaged in or who are suspected of having engaged in terrorism and espionage can still be deported. The moratorium, which took place on Friday, also does not apply to persons who were not physically present in the U.S. as of November 1st, 2020. We're confident that as the case proceeds, it will be clear that this measure was wholly appropriate in ordering a temporary pause to allow the agency to carefully review its policies, procedures, and enforcement policies while allowing a greater focus on threats to public safety, said a White House spokesperson. President Biden remains committed to taking immediate action to reform our immigration system to ensure it's upholding American values while keeping our communities safe. They're going to announce further guidance on the issue by February 1st. Okay, so let's take a look at the court document so we can see how this is working and what's going on here. This article or this complaint was filed by the Texas Attorney General, who goes by the name of Ken Paxton, and another of other individuals on behalf of the state of Texas, and they're suing the Biden administration over here in the Southern District of Texas, the Victoria Division. This is a federal court, and this is the complaint. You can see it here. It's state of Texas versus U.S. David Pekosek, the acting secretary of U.S. Department of Homeland Security in his official capacity. We've got Troy Miller. We've got some people from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. We've got U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, and on and on and on. Introduction. On its first day in office, the Biden administration cast aside congressionally enacted immigration laws and suspended the removal of illegal aliens, they're calling them, whose removal is compelled by those very laws. In doing so, he ignored basic constitutional privileges, violated its written pledge to work cooperatively with Texas, and is causing irreparable harm. Wednesday night, the alleged acting Department of Homeland Security ordered a halt on nearly all deportations of illegal aliens, including those whose removal was ordered following a full and fair hearing, and those who are not entitled and do not claim to be entitled to further immigration benefits. So what they're saying is whether or not they could have already had a hearing on these people. And even if they were not entitled to further immigration relief, they still were being sort of kept in here. So, typically, I'm not an immigration lawyer, but typically what happens is you have a removal hearing where they'll go in, they'll have a hearing about whether or not to remove you from the country. And so they're saying here that some people had gone through that process or had been processed to a certain degree, and they're not entitled to stay here. And this order from the Department of Homeland Security was saying, that's okay. They're staying here anyways. Even though you went through that motion, they're let them out, in other words. If left unchallenged, DHS could reassert the suspension power for a longer period or even indefinitely, granting blanket amnesty to illegal aliens that Congress has refused to pass time and again. The Constitution, controlling statutes, and prior executive pledges prevent a seismic change to this country's immigration law merely by memorandum. Okay, and that's all this was. It was just an executive order. And so we're not going to go through this whole document. Let's take a look at what we've got here, because there's a lot. Let's just fly through it. Factual background. We've got cooperation and coordination. We've got they're trying to promote coordination and cooperation between Texas and the Department of Homeland Security. They entered into an agreement here called an agreement that was a binding and enforceable commitment between DHS and Texas. So essentially a contract. The agreement said Texas will provide information and assistance to help DHS perform its border security, legal immigration, national security missions in exchange for DHS commitment to consult Texas and consider its views before taking certain administrative actions. For example, they got to consult before doing any one of these three things. Before reducing, redirecting, reprioritizing, relaxing, lessening, eliminating, or modifying immigration enforcement, pausing or decreasing the number of returns or removals, declining to decrease the number of lawful, removable, or inadmissible aliens. So they have to consult with Texas. They didn't consult with Texas. We see here under count one, the claim is they failed to provide notice and consult with Texas. They issued a memorandum without following the notice and consultation requirements in the agreement, so them meaning Biden, and the memorandum was arbitrary, according to them, arbitrary, capricious, an abuse of discretion, and not in accordance with the law, according to U.S. Code 70628. They're saying after January 20th, Texas will be irreparably damaged and will not have an adequate remedy at law. Count number two, failure to remove illegal aliens is in violation of 8 U.S. Code 1231. When an alien is ordered removed, the Attorney General shall remove the alien from the United States, according to U.S. Code. So they're saying that the Attorney General is responsible for enforcing this, for making sure that once they're identified and ordered removed, that they got to remove it. And now Biden is saying you can't do that anymore. So they're referring back to the U.S. Code and saying, well, I'm ordered by the U.S. Code to do this. So if you're sort of asking me to do something that is against the law, that's a pretty big problem. And that's why they're asking the court for an injunction. Paragraph 45, by pausing removals for 100 days, they're going to prevent the Department of Homeland Security from complying with the law. The memorandum on January 20th says that it recognizes the importance of a 90-day deadline, but it commands the director of ICE to implement the pause who have been ordered removed for 90 days or more. The 100-day pause will necessarily cause violation of the U.S. law. Count number three, failure to take care of the laws to be faithfully executed. They're saying that the Constitution is binding them to do what they're supposed to do. The January 20th memorandum is unconstitutional because it directs executive officials not to enforce the law. They're saying it's not an exercise of proper discretion. It's prosecutorial discretion is being abused. And then arbitrary and capricious agency action is another one. Arbitrary and capricious, it's just this language that you'll see a lot in case law. It's saying that it's kind of done without any logical basis. I think that Joe Biden and his team, of course, are going to make a logical basis for it, but it sounds like in that memorandum they have not done so yet. So that's what they're pointing out. They're saying here, It represents a sharp departure from Department of Homeland Security policy. It does not sufficiently explain the sudden departure, and therefore it's arbitrary and capricious. So, they can, I think, respond in this. They can issue a new memorandum that is not so arbitrary and capricious. This is why we're doing it. This is the benefit to Texas. This is why we think this is more in alignment with the underlying mission of the Department of Homeland Security. They can justify it a number of different ways, issue a new memorandum. But is that going to deal with counts 3 over here? How do they deal with the U.S. code that mandates they do it under 1231? How do they deal with the failure to provide notice and consult with Texas? Presumably they could consult with Texas, but if what they're ordering Texas to do is in direct contravention to the U.S. code, not sure how that's going to play out. We've got counts 4 and 5. We have number 4, failure to follow the requirements of the notice and comment rulemaking. So this is basically saying, we signed a contract, you got to abide by the contract. Failure to promote the removal of illegal aliens in count 5. It's arbitrary and capricious. It is, Texas will be irreparably harmed. No adequate remedy at law. And then this is what they're asking for. So this is the final document, or the final page that was submitted by Ken Paxton. And it says they want to, the Texas wants to hold unlawful and set aside the memorandum. So we're not going to follow the memo. Declare that the memorandum is unlawful. Issue a preliminary and permanent injunctive relief enjoining the defendants from enforcing or implementing the memorandum. Postpone an effective date of the memorandum. Award Texas the cost of this action and attorney's fees and other such relief as the court deems equitable. Submitted January 22nd by Ken Paxton, Brett Webster, Patrick Sweeten. Signed by William Thompson, Special Litigation Unit over with the Texas Office of the Attorney General. And Ken Paxton declared on Twitter 2 days ago, said, "Victory, Texas is the first state in the nation to bring a lawsuit against the Biden admin, and we won. Within 6 days of his inauguration, Texas has halted his illegal deportation freeze. This was a seditious left-wing insurrection, and my team and I stopped it." All right, so I'm not sure that I agree with that characterization of it, but this is what the judge finally said. And this is an order. Let me move myself over here. Order granting plaintiffs the emergency application for a temporary restraining order. And they're explaining it in the relevant part. The memorandum directs an immediate pause on removals for any non-citizen with a final order of removal for 100 days. After reviewing the application and the response and the brief, the court finds Texas has satisfied the requirements for a temporary restraining order. It is granted. In doing so, the court makes clear this order is not based on the agreement. The issues implicated by the agreement are of such gravity and constitutional import, they require further development of the record and briefing prior to addressing the merits. The court finds that a TRO maintaining the status quo as it existed prior to the implementation of the memorandum is appropriate under the Administrative Procedures Act, the APA. Accordingly, pursuant to Rule 65 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedures, they're enjoined from executing the 100-day pause. So what the court is doing here is they're taking, so Texas filed 5 different counts or complaints that they were upset about. And the court is saying, all right, well, listen, we're not going to lean on this agreement that Texas had with the Department of Homeland Security. Instead, we're going to rely on a different legal authority called the Administrative Procedures Act, which says that the status quo is appropriate and the memorandum maintaining the status quo is appropriate. The 100-day pause is appropriate under the Administrative Procedures Act. Leaving the status quo in lieu of the 100 days. So here's the final conclusion from the court. It is ordered that defendants and all their respective officers and attorneys and everybody else are, where did my mouse go? There it is. Who are in active concert or participation with them are hereby enjoined and restrained from enforcing and implementing the policies. The temporary restraining order is granted on a nationwide basis, so it goes everywhere, prohibits enforcement of the implementation in the memo. No security bond is required. The court orders that they have a proposed briefing schedule so that they can review the rest of the case. This was decided on January 26 by Drew B. Tipton, a United States magistrate judge, United States district judge. So pretty big win there for Texas. Kind of a little bit of a loss there for Biden, but they can respond. And of course, the court is still going to be asking for briefs, and this may be something that's just a speed bump. They may, ultimately respond and develop their argument to such a degree that the courts can no longer block them anymore. We don't know yet. A lot of the criticism that Biden and his team have been getting very recently have been because he's just passing a ton of executive orders. I don't know what the number is now, but I think he is sort of crushing everybody else in terms of the amount, the volume of executive orders that are being drafted. Now, they also, remember, the Democrats also control the House and the Senate. 50 Senate Democrats plus Kamala Harris gives them a 51 vote majority there. And there's still a lot going on in the Senate about the power sharing structure between Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer. They're talking about sort of dividing up the committee chairs, and they're also talking about the filibuster and whether or not they're going to need a simple majority vote to get stuff passed, or whether they're going to need to bring on a certain number of Republicans in order to get anything through Congress. So all that is still being hashed out. I think they're dealing with Kyrsten Sinema here from Arizona, as well as Joe Manchin over from West Virginia, because they are saying that they're not going to support the removal of the filibuster rule so that Democrats have a simple majority. But we'll see if that actually plays out that way. So this is another article, speaking of judges and court rulings. So Joe Biden obviously would not be happy with the fact that his moratorium against illegal immigration was, sort of in favor of maintaining individuals with questionable legal status in the country. Probably not particularly happy that that is being blocked by a federal judge. So they're now talking about modifying the judiciary. We already spent some time talking about this before the election. Joe Biden was asked a number of times before the election, point blank, are you going to be modifying the Supreme Court? Are you going to pack the court? Right now, it's a 9-person court. Currently, 6 conservatives are on the court. Alleged conservatives, some of them I have questions about, and 3 liberals are on the court. So the conservatives have a majority on the court, 6-3. Democrats were not happy about that. Remember, Amy Coney Barrett came in and replaced Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and that really sealed the majority for the conservative wing of the court. Democrats unhappy about it. Joe Biden got asked a number of times, so did Kamala Harris. Hey, are you going to pack the court or not? Are you going to add, 6 other judges or 4 other judges? What are you going to do? Are you going to bump that up to 13 judges so that you get to appoint all of the judges between 9 and 13? That's a lot of judges, and it would swing the balance of power back to a 7-6 liberal majority. Are they going to do that? Joe Biden didn't answer that. But now we know that they are forming a commission on Supreme Court reform to investigate this, of course. Just to investigate it, to see, well, maybe this is worthwhile. Let's take a look at this article over from Politico. It says Biden starts staffing a commission on Supreme Court reform. The Biden administration is moving forward with the creation of a bipartisan commission to study reforms to the Supreme Court and the federal judiciary. So 2 things I want to point out. Number 1, we're talking about the Supreme Court, and we're also talking about the federal judiciary. Those are 2 separate things. Supreme Court is the court at the top of the federal judiciary. So if the judiciary looks like this, like a triangle, Supreme Court is at the top, and then we have all the different circuits down here below that make up the rest of the pyramid. Well, currently we have this, the Democrats can go in and modify the Supreme Court by adding a number of seats to it, or they can alter this, the federal judiciary. They can create new circuits. They can, appoint new judges. They can expand the number of judges. And so we're talking about both of those issues. We're talking about either expanding the Supreme Court or expanding the federal judiciary, or both. The commission will be housed under the purview of the White House Office of Counsel. Behind the scenes help from Biden's campaign lawyer, Bob Bauer, co-chair it. It's still, the mandate is still being decided. It signaled the commission is indeed moving ahead. Some members have already been selected, according to multiple people familiar with the discussions. Among those who will be on the commission, Christina Rodriguez, Yale Law School, Obama Department of Justice individual, Bauer will join, Carolyn, all these different people. Okay, a lot of Harvard people, a lot of Yale people, which means it's probably going to be a disaster. The recruitment of members is still ongoing, but a source familiar with the discussion expects between 9 and 15 members total to be appointed to the commission. Rodriguez and Goldsmith did not respond to a request, and they all declined to comment. The idea came together amid the push by Republican senators, so it's the Republicans' fault, damn it, to confirm Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court in the weeks before the November election. Under intense pressure to consider reforms, including court expansion, Biden performed a classic Washington, D.C. punt. He announced in October that if he was elected, he would form a commission to study structural changes. He also conceded he's not a fan of court packing. Well, that doesn't matter. The Democrats are. The last thing we need to do is turn the Supreme Court into a political football. Whoever has the most votes get whatever they want. Biden said in 60 Minutes interview in October. Presidents come, presidents go. Justices stay for generations, which I agree with him on that. And if he stuck to that, I would agree with him completely on that. Progressives' push to expand the Supreme Court was re-energized after they won both Georgia and Senate runoff races in January, giving them control of the White House and Congress for the first time since 2010. But any major structural reform would be a heavy lift. Several Democratic senators have signaled their opposition. Chuck Schumer, said he was waiting for Biden's commission to decide. President Biden has put together this commission to come up with a report in 180 days. We're going to see what the commission says and go from there. So we'll see what happens. I think that probably they're not going to have the political willpower to pack the Supreme Court. I just don't think so. It's a big deal. That would be a big shift. And I think that they would be penalized massively. In other words, you would need a lot of Republicans. I'm not sure how many Republicans you would need to vote for that, but you'd have a lot of sort of reddish or purple-ish Democratic senators whose constituencies would be very unhappy with that. And, you might have a couple of them who voted in favor of it, knowing that their sort of terms were over, but I don't think that they would get reelected again. I think that this is the shiny object. When you're talking about, a strategy, moving things around, we talk about this in the courtroom a lot. Sometimes when you are presenting a trial, you want to have your real argument and you want to have your shiny object. Two things. Okay. One, to kind of throw the prosecutor off a little bit. One, to, maybe keep the attention of the jury while you're really presenting your argument. You think the prosecutor is focused on this shiny object and your real argument is going to come to fruition. It's going to all come together at the conclusion of your case when you do your closing argument. So everybody's sort of watching over here, but this is really what's going on. It's really, your best argument is sort of flying under the radar. And I think that might be what's happening here. So they're talking about packing the Supreme Court, knowing that is where all the energy is going to be. That's where everybody's focused. And they'll have a commission come out and they'll say, well, Supreme Court, it could probably use it. Could probably use another 4 justices so that we can make it a 7-6 balance. And it probably could use that. But that's not the ultimate end goal. The commission report will come out to sort of impugn the current Supreme Court. And, the report that comes out will say it's highly biased so that if the Supreme Court ever rules against Joe Biden on a grand scale, now they can refer back to the commission and say, well, look, the commission found, when Jen Psaki, who probably won't, I'm not sure how long she's going to be there, but if she's there for let's say 2 years and this commission is done and now they're reporting on whether or not to go forward with a pack of the Supreme Court, and they decide not to do that, then they'll have this commission report that every time the Supreme Court rules against Biden, they can just say, well, that's why they did it. It's a political partisan committee up there in the Supreme Court. Or what they could do is just say, they could use the commission to say, we're just not going to follow what the Supreme Court said, right? Remember, the Supreme Court operates based on its legitimacy. It really has almost no enforcement capabilities in the Constitution to tell the other branches of government what to do. It's just interpreting the law. Now, the reason why the different branches of government perform whatever the Supreme Court tells them to do is because it's agreed upon, right? We have, the Supreme Court has legitimacy, but there's precedent in this country where I think Andrew Jackson actually said that, okay, well, that's neat that they ruled that way, but we're just going to do it anyways. What are they going to do about it? Okay, they issued a ruling, let them enforce it. So if Joe Biden now has some cover from this commission to not do what the Supreme Court is ordering him to do, maybe the American public buys that. I doubt it, but maybe. And the other part here about the shiny object is they may not be intending to pack the Supreme Court, but they certainly want to pack the underlying judiciary, the bottom of that pyramid. And they can do that by adding a circuit or just adding other federal judges to the bench so that they could get new appointments. And since they have the control of the Senate and the House, they can fill those vacancies up very quickly. They just need a simple majority vote in the Senate in order to do that. So keep that in mind. Be watching for this shiny object in the form of a judicial commission. All right, let's jump into the super chats. Thanks everybody for being so patient. Our first one coming over from Sharon. Sharon Quidney says, hey, Rob, you mentioned COVID in the show info, so now you've got a tube disclaimer. Tisk tisk. I guess they suspect you won't just echo the party line. Yeah, Sharon, I knew that. As I was typing the title in today, I said, uh-oh, I'm using the C word. I'm going to get a disclaimer, a context bar, but that's all right. It's important. I think it's an important story. What's going on in New York, I think, is very indicative of the trend that we see elsewhere around the country, where the government officials, the experts, they tell us they know what they're doing. They tell us what the numbers are. The tests are fine. Everything's fine. It's all good and well. But when you look into it, when you have an attorney general's office go in and sort of probe the same data, you see there are massive problems all over the place. So I'm not sure why anybody would trust basically anything you see anymore. It's that bad. We have Reagan Shepler says, what happened to First Amendment protection? Good question there, Regan. I think that Regan, that's probably Regan, right? Good question there, Regan. I think that it is under heavy assault right now. And I'm not being hyperbolic with that. I mean, literally, it's under heavy assault. I think there is a coordinated effort from big tech. We now have a coordinated effort from the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice and the Biden administration to go after, we just saw it in the DHS report, right? Misinformation, unjust, unverified grievances, conspiracy theories, all of these things, they are the problem. Those are the underlying justification for, that's the basis for why all this bad stuff is happening, is because people are getting bad information, misinformation, and now they're going to be prosecuting people and putting it out in Homeland Security bulletins for the foreseeable future. We got Wolfgang Deo says, 15 days to slow the spread. How many more days do we have? I voted for a woman president or woman candidate president twice in 2 separate elections. So Wolfgang, we're at like day 300 now, maybe? If you want to start from March 13th, I think, is when the official lockdown order was from President Trump on a federal level. Or I wouldn't say a lockdown order because there was no federal lockdown order, but it was a federal state of emergency. I think that was March 13th. So it's almost a full 365. We're almost around the clock. And I don't think it's letting up anytime soon. Another one from Wolfgang. Are we going to see a second Occupy Wall Street? I think you're seeing it. I think this is a digital Occupy Wall Street. They don't need to go down there physically anymore. All they need to do is just buy some stock and organize on Reddit. I'll be very curious to see what Reddit does, whether they're going to do anything about Wall Street bets. Oh, hey, by the way, that chat service that canceled us unexpectedly without any warning and is not responding to our emails because they are overly burdened, apparently. They canceled another platform called Wall Street Bets. There was a different chat server in there, and they also got canceled. So you see here, they don't want you to communicate outside of the vertical where they put you in. If you're communicating, if you're colluding, if you are doing anything that upsets the main power structure, they get the order from on high to cancel you, shut you up, close you down, and potentially put you under SEC investigation. We have Pinky2 says, I was securities licensed when I worked. It has the feel of insider trading because they put it out in the open and sounds like so others will join. It does sound like that, right, Pinky? That was my first instinct too. It's like, hey, if you're colluding to manipulate the markets, I can't, we don't do almost any of, sort of white collar crime like that. Some of these, federal insider trading and stuff. We just don't do that. We like sort of the boots on the ground criminal law. That's kind of where we exist. And so I don't know much about it. We refer that stuff to other people who specialize in those legal types of crimes. Those I would say more technical, paperwork type of crimes. We like sort of a different area of criminal law. And so that goes out to other people. But just my instincts, my spidey sense was ringing off the bell going, wait a minute, the SEC is not going to be happy about this because of what was happening. Now, I don't think, I'm not sure that they did anything illegal at all, but that doesn't really matter anymore because I don't think that the meme guy did anything illegal anyways. And he's been arrested and on an arrest warrant, and he's facing a max of 10 years. So who knows? Takahari is in the house, says the only manipulation I see is of those in charge of access to the market. It's a good point. What is so wrong about being excited about one's gains, about telling others what they are thinking, planning, and presently buying or selling? Those elites that do that between themselves, we just cannot see their backroom chats like they can ours. Oh, at least you have the first female secretary of the Treasury. What does that matter? Mnuchin was a Treasury secretary or economic advisor to look after you or to oppress you. Yeah. Yeah, Seji, good points on that. Thanks for sharing that. That was a comment over on Locals. So go check out Locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Hey, Beth Coddington is in the house. She says, hey guys, glad to see you managed without me last night. Great show. I watched it this morning. Arrested for memes. I never could have pictured that. Good to see you, Beth. You know, it felt a little bit empty. I got to be honest. Please don't do that against us. We get nervous. We get a little bit scared. We're glad you're back, though, Beth. Well, Wolfgang Deo says, didn't AOC's actions result in the death of numerous Americans through stochastic terrorists claiming to be peaceful rioters? When will she resign? Yeah, I think AOC is very, very insightful. Very insightful. Remember that picture of her on the fence where she was sort of like crying? Oh, they're immigration. They're immigrants in there. I'm crying. And how all the photographs of her in the white suit, you know, just in the white suit and pants, you're just going, oh my gosh. It's like an Instagram photo op happening from a congressperson outside of an immigration facility. But, you know, that's a pretty provocative picture because people would see that picture and they would just go, wow, there must be like literally murdering people in that building. Look how upset she is. And that's going to cause them to feel incited, and that might lead to insurrection. So she should be impeached. S. McKay says, R&R, you should really check out the work by James Corbett and from the Corbett Report, and also Whitney Webb, an actual journalist, both doing great work. We will. Yeah, actually, we will. You know, I'm always looking for other people who are doing good things out there. I just started watching the Epoch Times guy. What's his name? I can't remember. I just subscribed to him. I think actually Beth Coddington, I think she sent us that a while back, and I've been following him. He does good work. The other guy I follow, who's hilarious. if you're into conservative podcasts, this guy's very conservative, and he's hilarious. And it's not a free podcast. You got to pay for it over on Patreon, but his name is Stephen O. Miller, and he's pretty hilarious. It's $3 a month, I think, for his show, but it's well worth it. I just joined up over there. And it's a lot of fun. So thank you, S. McKay. We'll write those down. James Corbett. I don't know. Colbert ruined it for us. I thought it was Colbert, and then it's Colbert, and now it's Corbett. I don't know. But we'll check them out. S. McKay, thank you for that. We have another one coming in from Vinny the Cat. Says, when you look at the behavior of the mob on January 6th, do you have any doubt that they would have killed AOC if they had got hold of her? I do have a doubt about that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what would have happened if they would have gotten a hold of her. I'm not sure that they would have killed her. You know, I don't know. I'm glad that they did not get a hold of her. I'm glad that she was out of there. I'm glad that nobody got caught and captured. And, you know, it's not a good scene, but was she almost murdered? Like almost murdered? I don't know. I mean, was she like being thrown into the back of a van like Hillary Clinton before they skid out of there? And there were protesters descending down upon her. How close was it to almost being murdered? Was she out 10 minutes before they breached the building? Or was it like 10 seconds? I don't know. But it certainly sounds a little bit dramatic to me. She seems to be the only one making that claim. Or as vitriolically as she is, I would say. She's mad. Look, I would be mad too. I am mad about it. I'm not happy what happened on Capitol Hill. I do not endorse it. I think they should be prosecuted. I've been consistent about that. Anybody who injured or damaged any property, I've been very consistent about it. I think that AOC's, exaggerating it for political effect, of course, which is obvious. And Republicans are minimizing it for political effect, which is also obvious. But my bigger point here was, did Ted Cruz almost murder her? Okay, that's not what she said. That's exactly what she said. If the rioters would have gotten her, yeah, maybe they would have killed her. Maybe they would have done something to it. I doubt it. I mean, I don't know what their end game was. Nobody's explained that to me. Were they going to just hold them hostage and demand a private state or take control of the government because they've got congressional hostages? What was the game plan? We saw one guy walk out of there with a podium. Did he think he was in charge of the government because he had the podium? I don't know. I don't know what the end plan was because nobody has told us. Apparently this thing was planned for a long time before before January 6th, but I don't know what the end game was. It looked pretty much out of control to me. But the question is, did Ted Cruz try to murder AOC? She says he did. Do you think that is fair, Vinny the Cat? I don't. Ted Cruz is a congressman. He was just performing his constitutional duty. He was there giving a speech, challenging the electoral votes, as he's constitutionally permissible for him to do. Matt Maker Jenny says, very nice. Thank you, Matt Maker Jenny. Very, very, very nice super chats. I guess we need to add AOC to your impeachment list. Your template is great. Can we copy your exhibits for Kamala, or do we have to get our own? Yeah, that's all available for you there, Matt Maker Jenny. You can use those exhibits. You can use the Kamala impeachment article and the impeachment template if you'd like. But you can also, if you're going to be drafting it for a different individual, say for AOC, then you're going to want to rewrite some of that stuff. I don't think that the exhibits would apply to AOC like they wouldn't apply to Mitch McConnell or to Ted Cruz or to anybody you want to impeach. But yeah, take that template, do a quick Google search. What I would do is I would just type in their name and then I would type the word fight into Google, or go on Twitter and search their Twitter profile, their timeline, and see if they ever use the word fight in there. Because that's the same word that Donald Trump used. So if AOC says, hey, we have to fight these Wall Street fat cats. Oh, that's provocative language. That's incitement language. That's the same language that Donald Trump used, and they impeached him for that language. So you would just say, okay, AOC used it, Mitch McConnell used it, Ted Cruz used it, Chuck Schumer used it, Nancy Pelosi used it, boom, impeachments across the board. That is our impeachment party. Thank you very much, Matt Maker Jenny, for that very nice super chat. Another one from Za Jiang says, impeach AOC for inciting insurrection. She is. I mean, it sounds like she's inciting insurrection against Ted Cruz specifically. He's a member of Congress. All right. She's saying that he tried to murder her, which I don't think is legally accurate. It sounds like disinformation to me, and it sounds like she's trying to puff that up so that other people will think that Ted Cruz is a murderer. And if anything bad happens to Ted Cruz, I mean, even if he gets a threatening tweet at this point in time, because that's public information that's on the internet, now you can be charged for internet crimes. Now AOC's very clearly inciting violence and insurrection against a sitting senator. Unbelievable. We have Wolfgang Deo says, I've been in the position of suicide many times. It is because I was in hell, not because of my mental state. These PC people need to stop. By the way, I'm fine laughing my ass off at the administration, just saying we told them so. Thought it'd be boring. Nah, it's a racket. It is kind of funny. I mean, it is, it's kind of concerning, some of the stuff that's going on. I'm particularly concerned about the free speech stuff and the over prosecution of memes from 2016. Very, very highly concerned about that. But you're also seeing a lot of these journalists and a lot of people around me going, wait a minute, we're not going back to school? Why not? That's a problem. What do you mean this is going up? What do you mean our taxes are going to go up? I just got off the phone with my financial advisor. Why are they saying my taxes are going to go up? Well, who did you vote for? That's why. So it is kind of amusing to see that. We have another one. We got Sharon Quinn. He says, Rob, my deepest sympathy. Suicide should not be stigmatized in any way, and having things out in the open is better than covering it up. So distressing all the suicides and other problems due to lockdowns and isolation. Yeah, Sharon, it's a good point. And thank you for that very generous super chat and for that message. You know, this is something that I have been more open and more vocal about because for a long time I was keeping it inside. My brother died in 2016. I had a couple rough years after that. And then I got my life together. You know, I figured it out. I processed my grief. And yeah, I had this weird intersection in my life where I was somebody who had, sort of struggled with alcohol before my brother died, but then drastically after that, I lost somebody to suicide, and I happen to be a criminal defense attorney. And so I deal with a lot of people who are having suicidal thoughts. I deal with a lot of people who have criminal problems as a result of an addiction. I deal with a lot of people that have, just overall mental stresses on their lives that causes them to engage in some sort of criminality, or I would say a contributor to that. And so I just thought I gotta talk about it. I gotta just share it and open up a little bit. And it was a big deal for me, to be a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit more open and to share some of this stuff with so many people. But what I have found is that communicating this message, communicating the fact that I've been there and I've survived it, has provided hope to other people. And I've gotten messages about it. Hey, I lost my brother, I lost my sister, I lost my mother. And I think it's through being authentic and being open and sharing our experiences with other people that we can really truly heal. And so I wanted to point that out, about that officer, that, it really shouldn't be a political thing. It should just be, what can we do to help improve this situation across the country? Because right now it's catastrophic. It's a quick plug for an organization we started after my brother died. It's called ericshouse.org. It is for people who've lost somebody to suicide, overdose, or tragic death. Tragic death would be something like, we have men's groups and women's groups. We have a lot of healing and ceremonial groups over there. But we've had people in there who lost, their 14-year-old son in an ATV accident, right? That's a traumatic death. It happens very, very out of the blue. You would never expect it. And so, those people grieve a little bit differently. And there's a lot of stigma with some of those things. Were you a bad parent? Were you a bad brother? Were you somebody who, could have done something more? And I've had, even some of my closest friends in my life don't even want to talk about it with me. Never bring it up, never say anything about it because of the stigma. And so what you want to do is just connect with other people who have gone through those same experiences, and you can help each other navigate through this life. So thank you for that, Sharon. I really do appreciate the support. AL says, did you see the insanity of Bill HR 1 in 2021? Dems trying to legalize election F-word methods. What do we do about bad bills with Dem majority in Congress? So you gotta lean on your Congress people at that point. Especially if you're in a blue state, you got to make your voice heard. You got to make your voice known. Speak out about it. Bring other people onto your side of the aisle. There's a lot of organizing you can do that will impact your local congressional representative and your local senators. So if you're unhappy about it, there really is only one recourse. You can get more vocal. You can try to create an audience. You can get plugged into another audience. You can try to be persuasive and effective with your communication so that other people will come to your side of the aisle and hope to convert some people against some of the things that you're saying. It requires you to be more vocal, to learn to communicate, to maybe create a platform or start a local book club or something like that. You can be proactive in a way that's helpful and useful for you and for others, and I think that's the best formula. We have Operation Flag Drop. NJ says microphone cameras are known to be used by DVEs to promote extremist activities. Should they require a federal license to own and operate? Coming soon. So it's an interesting point. Microphones and cameras are known to be used by DVEs to promote extremist activities. Should they require a federal license to own and operate? I certainly hope not, but that would include everything: cell phones, webcams, everything could be included in that. We'll see. We'll see if they start making exceptions to the warrantless stuff or they set up special courts. Who knows what's coming? Sharon Quidney says the DHS thing is totally bogus. Political views? Yeah, right. As long as you aren't going against the quote party, you're okay whatever you do. Yeah. So it's political views that they don't like. We're already seeing that. Okay. There were many, many memers who were Democrats in 2016. I have not seen any of them being prosecuted yet. It's only one particular side. It's troubling. Yum Yum for Dum Dum by Kat Brummett says, I'm hoping this ends the Portland protests. Last night they spray painted DHS building, burned an American flag, and started a dumpster fire. Yeah. I'm not sure that they're really focused on them. I think they're focused on the Capitol Hill Trumpers more than anything. We have SVV says, thanks for all the info, R&R Law. Impeach them all. Yes. Impeach everybody. It's going to be fun, folks. We've got an impeachment trial coming right up. We're going to have a lot of impeaching to do in a short week. Brian Hack says, I've changed my mind. I hope Kamala's ambition pushes forth in becoming president. At this point, I think I'm open to her being the overlord instead. Yeah, Brian, it feels like that's already on the agenda. It's just a matter of time until that happens. And, whether it happens during Biden's term or whether he just decides not to run again and she's sort of, the de facto heir apparent, we don't know, but it certainly feels like she's being sort of cultivated and groomed to be the next or the real commander in chief. It's just totally speculation. Beth Coddington says Hunter Biden is the head of the DEA. Betty'd love that. Free drugs and money. Yeah, it'd be a good job for him, wouldn't it? He would have a lot of fun with that. He'd have to go, yeah, I'm gonna, where did you find those drugs? China? Okay, I'm gonna have to go check that out. I'll be on a plane over to Shanghai tonight. Wolfgang Deo says, man, let's just have 9,001 justices. Over 9,000, Wolfgang? That's a lot. Can Supreme Court sue the executive legislative if they expand? Well, the Supreme Court could just, actually, no, I don't think they could do anything about that because the Constitution says that the Congress can adjust the size of the judiciary. So as long as they did it according to the rules of the Constitution, that would be fine. But if the Supreme Court saw that they did something sort of extra constitutional outside of the bounds of the constitutional rules, then yeah, they could just declare that to be unconstitutional, and they could even, refuse to honor or consider any of the lower level court cases that were working their way up through those illegitimate newly created circuits or federal positions. But I don't think that they would go that approach. Cracklin says, could Mexico continue the border wall? Could a group provide dedicated funds to the Mexican government to continue the wall? I think Mexico could. If they were building it on their land, they could just pick up and run. You could have a little transition, like a handoff. And will they? I doubt it. I don't think so at all. Could the Mexican government continue the wall, or could a group provide dedicated funds to them? Sure, they could. But again, I think this is a political issue. This was just a political flag that was put up. Now a different administration is coming in. They're changing the flag. We have Gail Hand says, suicides. Shouldn't someone be asking what did they know and who they may not have wanted them to testify? It is a good question, Gail. This is something that is probably spinning through a lot of other people's minds. What is going on here? One, okay, you can say there's a lot of pressure, a lot of grief. Two, you say that's strange. What is going on? What is the pressure? What's converting otherwise, presumably normal, guys, normal officers who were just doing their job. Something catastrophic happened in their lives. Now they're going into a state of despair, a state of depression, internal turmoil. What happened there? Why is this happening to them? And what can we do about it? There were a lot of officers who were involved with that. So how, if I was, running the Capitol Hill Police or the Metro Police in DC, it's like, hey, we're on red alert now. Okay. We've had 2 people die by their own hand, by suicide. What the hell is going on? And you call in therapists, counselors, you do a check with everybody, a wellness check. Are you okay? Let's talk, keep everybody monitored, because what's going on? To hopefully prevent it from happening again. Teacher Man Fit 1955 said, classic magician's trick, misdirection. Abracadabra, look over here while I pull the rug out from under you. Love this channel. Good work. Thank you, Teacher Man. Yeah, the shiny object, it's pretty good. You can use that in a lot of different areas of your life, but use it wisely because it's pretty effective. Even in little, conversations, even in business deals, if you're signing a contract, I want this. This is what I want. Okay, they're going to give you all this stuff. This is really what you're working after. This is the thing that's really important to you. Don't show all your cards in one hand. Another one from Crocs11 Alpha. If AOC is still falsely claiming the GOP congressmen and women are trying to kill her, can the 25th Amendment extend to her? So no, that's actually directly for the president. The 25th Amendment is the removal amendment. So the presidential cabinet would, at the behest of the vice president, we kind of went through this with Pence, right? With Pence and Trump. After the Capitol Hill riots, Mike Pence was being leaned on heavily from a lot of the individuals in the Democratic Party to invoke the 25th Amendment, which would have called the cabinet members in Donald Trump's administration and asked them to vote as to whether or not he should be removed from office. And the 25th just applies specifically to the president. So not to AOC, but she could certainly be impeached for inciting insurrection. And in fact, we have a template about that. And maybe we'll draft one of those up as we get closer and closer to the impeachment party that's going to be taking place in February. Beth Coddington says, now they're pushing for Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill again. How long before all currency is identity politicized? Crossroads with Joshua Phillip. Boom, there it is. Yeah, Beth was the one who connected me with him. I like him a lot. Very easygoing, very mellow, very nice analysis. Sometimes I like to listen to those shows that don't sound like me. I kind of can be a little bit aggressive and a little bit fast talking. If I want to listen to somebody who talks faster to me, then I listen to Ben Shapiro because he talks like a mile a minute. But Joshua Phillip is very nice, very easygoing, very fun. Beth Coddington said, yeah, Harriet Tubman on the 20 again. How long before all currency is identity politicized? Probably not long. Yeah, probably not long. I don't have any problem with Harriet Tubman on the 20. I don't have any problem with that at all. I have a problem with memory holing American history. I think I saw out of San Francisco that they're renaming the Lincoln High School because Lincoln was something Something bad? I don't even know what the justification is for that. Lincoln, the guy who signed the Emancipation Proclamation and freed literally the slaves in America and kept the country together after the Civil War, isn't woke enough to be on a high school anymore. It's like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But Harriet Tubman, amazing woman. I don't have any problems with that. S. McKay says, it's okay when billionaires rob the peasants, but when the peasants play their same game, the federal government is ready to protect their buddies. Yeah. They circle the wagons. This happens with all bureaucracies and all power structures. Now you're having the Wall Street fat cats circling their wagons. The cops do this too. The politicians do this too. Look what happened after Capitol Hill. 20,000, 25,000 armed guards there circling the wagons. Everybody is protecting themselves. But if you have Antifa burning down Portland, not so much activity there. If you've got rioters, right down the street from here at Fashion Square Mall, torching their buildings, not a big deal. Cops kind of stand down, let that stuff just go by. But if it's on Congress's ground, woo boy, we're going to send in troops from literally all over the country to come protect them. Works for them, doesn't work for you. Same thing happening right here with Wall Street. Adrian the Great, we shall follow common sense. That seems short supply this day. It does, doesn't it? Everybody's just so agitated, and they're so identified with one political group that it's like rooting for a sports team. Why do Oakland Raiders fans and the Niners fans, why do they want to literally kill each other? I don't know. Because they've identified with their tribe, and they're going to fight to the death for their tribe, no matter what happens, no matter what logic or reason exists in the world. Same situation in this country right now. Everybody is so highly politicized that they can't even think rationally, and they bundle up their political ideologies so that they're boxing themselves into one category. Now, if you're a regular of this show, you're going, Rob, you do that too, jerk. I do. I do sort of trend one way, but I try to give a fair shake to the other side at times, and I don't bundle my opinions. Kind of equally angry against essentially everybody. I'm okay impeaching all the Republicans too, along with the Democrats. That's why it's an impeachment party. Everybody's welcome. Everybody can come in. Donald Trump's getting impeached. All right, impeach all of the Republicans, impeach all the Democrats, impeach the Libertarians, impeach the Independents, take Bernie Sanders' mittens off, impeach the Socialists, get them all. Let's have some fun. S. McKay says the GameStop thing was way more effective than years of Occupy Wall Street. We need more people uniting and standing up. Yeah, that's exactly right? This was highly effective. And this is sort of my point. The personal, in-person political protests, I don't really know what they do. But when you can organize a community, when you can get together online, use your brains, think, use some satire to poke fun at them and build a little bit of a community, it's a lot more powerful. You can actually get some things done, like drafting impeachment documents. Look what we've been able to accomplish. Aaron says, discovered you election day. Haven't missed an episode since. First-time donor. Thank you for everything you do. Thanks, Aaron. Super nice of you. Very much appreciated. We're happy that you're here. We hope you stick around. We were just getting started. This show has only been going on consistently since September, and it's just grown like crazy. We're having a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to having you here as we continue onward. Wolfgang Deo says, never did figure out the Zodiac killer. I thought that was Ted Cruz. Wasn't that settled in 2016? Ted Cruz was the Zodiac killer, and wasn't his father responsible for the death of JFK? Those were memes that were going around in 2016, and they were outstanding memes. Hopefully I don't get prosecuted for that. Isaac Castillo says, does it count as slander if AOC accuses Ted Cruz of attempted murder, if she does it on CNN? By the way, happy Thursday, Robert. Thank you, Isaac. Happy Thursday to you, my friend. So, Ted Cruz is a public figure. And so the defamation, the slander rules are a little bit different for public figures. You'd have to have actual malice. So you'd actually, she'd have to be out there saying something that she knows is true, that's totally unreasonable, and that she's saying with the purpose of harming him. So she's got malice in her statements. And it's sort of a loose definition for defamation and those types of claims, but it's still, her comments, I don't think meet that threshold. It's a very high threshold if you're a public figure. So AOC's out there just saying, you tried to murder me. And you can make an argument for that. I mean, you can say, all right, he was out there. You can make an argument. I think it's a horrible argument and totally unreasonable, but you could say he was out there hawking these electoral concerns for months and months, and he was responsible for creating an environment that made everybody angry. And so therefore the chain of causation could, you could impart some percent of liability to Ted Cruz. I don't know how much percent, but you could make the argument. I think it's a terrible argument, but she could. And I think if she did that, then it would undermine any potential defamation claim that Ted Cruz would bring against her. And Ted Cruz is also not going to bring one against her. I think that she was, here's another little tip. When your opponent is making mistakes, one of the best things that you can do is just let him keep going. Just let him go. You don't have to interrupt them. You don't have to say anything. Just let it close. And I think that's what Ted Cruz is doing. I have not seen if he has responded to AOC. If I were him, I would not. I would just let that thing hang there because she sounds like a ridiculous person. We have Isaac Castillo says, Wolfgang Deo just got you to say it's over 9,000. I know, he got me to say it. I'm glad that you caught that, Isaac. I was wondering if anybody was going to catch that. 9,001. Over 9,000 judges? That's a lot. Joe Sosnowski says, collude with the Dems, get Hillary. DC cops in on it. Eesh, yeah, there must be that suicide one. We're going to leave that one hanging there, Joe. We have another one from Operation Flag Drop. If President Jackson can ignore SCOTUS, could states do the same if we get polarized enough? Yeah, you could. You could. I think the states absolutely could. And, there would be some serious ramifications for that. But, typically the way the federal government works is they don't have a lot of power to go in and mandate that states do things. That's why when we were talking about the federal mask ban, right? Joe Biden could have come out and said, or the federal mask mandate. If Joe Biden came out and said every single person in every state across this country has to wear a mask, the federal government doesn't have the power to do that. We have a dual system. It's called federalism, federal government, local state governments. So Joe Biden didn't have the authority to do that. When he was talking about it on the campaign trail, many people were saying, Joe, you can't do that, right? You're the federal president. You're not the chief executive of all the different states. They're able to do that. And he said, yeah, I know. So I'm just going to make it a recommendation. I'm going to lead by example. And so his policy modified on that. So if the federal government became overly burdensome, then yeah, the states could just say, no, we're not going to follow those orders. The way that the federal government gets the state to do a lot of stuff is by using the power of the purse. Congress passes laws that will sort of keep some leashes on the states in the form of money. Federal grants, if you do this, we're going to give you this money. And so you're still obligated to pay the taxes, but you have to, you want to get some benefits from that. So the federal government, the Department of Education comes in and says, we're going to give you this money if you do things this way. Okay, we're going to give you this funding, but you got to comport with our federal rules, our federal guidelines, and the states do it because they want the money. So if the states decided we don't want any of that stuff anymore, we're out, they could put a pretty big gap in between them and the federal government. Now, what the federal government does in response to that is a whole different question. Graham P. says, all this meme and social media disinformation is crazy. If, however, these are the rules we're playing by, where can we report CNN? Yeah, these are the new rules. I didn't set the rules. We're just playing with them. They set the impeachment standard. We're just playing with them. So we'll see where it goes, Graham. It's kind of a wild time, I would agree, though. Brad S. says, when I heard 2 officer suicides in 24 hours, I immediately wonder if they were the officers involved in the female that was shot inside the Capitol. It's a good question, Brad. Yeah, I don't know. It is a good question. We don't know much about this stuff. I think the information that we got from the story today from Politico was given in a closed-door session. And I'm extremely interested to figure out more of, there's a lot of people investigating right now, and I have a list of the names that I'm following, and I would like to know more information about that. I think you're exactly right. What caused this? Was there any factor that led to this? Happened twice. Identify those factors, figure out where the pressure is, see what the police can do to alleviate those pressures. I do not want to see more suicides. Not at all. It's horrible stuff. Ann Woodson, Rob, don't let this stuff get to you. Just a word of encouragement. You've got a great show and you're making a difference. Thank you so much. So, Ann, I appreciate that. Annie Woodson, I appreciate it. I don't know, I do try not to let any of the grief and the commentary get to me, because I think that we're on the right side of history on this stuff, and we're just going to keep going. We got Seiji Takahara. Mexico could arrest the caravan and have them build their wall with prison labor. Any idea if Mexico has laws against that? They actually built a border wall a bit more north of the border than the actual line. Not like being exactly on point is necessary when the land really cannot be used anyways, except travel due to border contestations. Yeah, so I think you'd have to, if Mexico wanted to build a wall, they can't build it on our side. They got to build it on their side. Last one of the day is coming in from Joe Sosnowski. Why is everybody pretending that acknowledging the irregularities is what made people angry, rather than the whole swamp sweeping it under the rug? Yeah, so that's where this is sort of being framed. You know, we're seeing this you know, if you even question the election, you are a conspiracy theorist, you're providing misinformation, you're against unity, you're probably a racist, and you probably also contributed to the Capitol Hill riots. So you're basically the worst person to ever exist on this planet. You're a liar and you're terrible, just because you have some questions about it. Okay, Rand Paul's getting this treatment on the national scale. And so we'll see if this continues or if the temperatures simmer down a little bit. I tend to think that it's probably something that is just our new reality, unfortunately. So let's wrap up the show there, everybody. I want to thank you so much for the super chats. Let's take a quick look and thank our supporters over on Locals. I totally spaced it since this is new, but I didn't add anybody from yesterday. I know we had a lot of you sign up, so this is blank. I apologize for that. I will add everybody who joined up over this last night tomorrow, so you are not forgotten. I just forgot to do it today. I was kind of skidding in here in preparation for the program. But you can see we got some awesome people over on Locals, people like Stank. We've got Nano Missy. We've got Dr. Guns. We've got Al Huber just joined up. S. Crutcher over here joined up. We have Sarah Smothers. We've got, of course, Miss Faith. Thank you for the show prep. Ma Fox, the moderator. They're over on Locals. A lot of awesome people here. Ditka's Bears. Pinky number 2's in the house. So just some awesome people over there. I would encourage you to go check it out. We're going to be really sort of focused on making it more active and getting more people involved. The web address is down here, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. There's an S at the end there. So just make sure you get that. Head on over there. Everything is free. If you want to get this stuff, it's available. Just go and click the links. The PowerPoint slides are there. The impeachment documents are there, so you can just download the impeachment document. This is a template that you can download. Just put your name in there, the name of you, you're the sponsor, identify who you're impeaching, the politician name, the elected position, and then just draft your own article. It's a lot of fun. You can also get my existence systems. This is my personal productivity development system that I use. It's totally free. This is a PowerPoint slide, so you can modify it to your own heart's desire and print it and use it. I have a whole tutorial that I did a video that I posted on the 1st of this year, January 1st, sort of a New Year thing that we did. You can also get a copy of my book. It's free. There's a PDF there. It's called Beginning to Winning, How to Fight Your Case and Succeed in the Criminal Justice System. Has a little bit of information about me. If you want to buy a copy, that's also available on Amazon for purchase. Good links and awesome conversation, but the real reason you want to be there is the great people. As I just mentioned, a lot of awesome people over there, good conversation, good links, good, you know, we're trying to sort of create a different little community over there, and we would appreciate it if you went over there. You don't have to sign up and be a paying subscriber. You can download everything for free, but if you want to comment and post things, you got to pay $5 minimum a month, and it's very inexpensive. You know, I try to give you as much value as I can think of in order to make it worth your while, but it's pretty inexpensive. It's like a cup of coffee. So it's a monthly thing. If you do pay for it, then you get access to everything in terms of posting and leaving comments and that stuff. But we're getting close. We're trying to get over 1,000 members over there. Doesn't have to be paying, just anybody over there, because once we cross that threshold, then we can post the full videos. We can actually post, I think, unlimited videos. And since this show is like 2 hours long, we're capped. We can't post the whole thing. So it gives us more privileges and more benefits. So it would mean the world if you head over there and just joined up, so that we can continue to grow and provide a show and some more value for you. So that's it for me there, folks. One final reminder, I am a lawyer. I'm a criminal defense attorney here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And my team and I, we help good people charged with crimes. We help them find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases and in their lives. We want to just help good people get things back on track. We're very good at what we do. We got a whole team of people here in Scottsdale. outstanding firm. Everybody's extremely passionate about it. And so if you trusted us enough to send a referral our way, anybody with an active criminal case in the state of Arizona, a closed criminal case that they want to clean their record up a little bit, restore their rights, restore their right to vote, possess a firearm, kind of be a full citizen again, we can help with that. If you've got an outstanding warrant, if you have an old criminal case you want to clean up, we can do that for you. If you got mugshots on the internet that you need to clean, you need cleaned up, we got a system for that. So we just want to help people get back on track, and we'd be honored and humbled if you trusted us enough to send them our direction. Other than that, my friends, that's it from me for the evening. I want to thank you once again for tuning in. If you have not already subscribed, we would love a subscribe. A like helps us get more exposure. A comment would be very much appreciated. We will be right back here at the same time, same place, 5 p.m. Arizona time, which is Mountain, 4 p.m. on the West Coast in California, 6 p.m. Central Time in Texas, 7 p.m. on the East Coast for Florida Man. And that's it. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks so much once again for being here. Sleep well. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.